I got some bad news and I got some good news. The bad news, it is still Monday. The good news, it's the end of Monday. We made it through. Congratulations on doing that. The other good news, you got some amazing inspiration and encouragement coming up today on today's episode with an amazing guest. Can't wait for you guys to hear from him. We're going to just have some wonderful conversation about his life and his journey as a musician. You're listening to him right now. Little lesson before we start the show is something that I learned this week and was reminded of. All things are permissible, but not everything is beneficial. It comes from Scripture. I learned it this weekend at church, but I think the purpose of that is really looking at a lot of the things that we look at and say, man, I can do this, so it has to be good for me. I'm able to do this, so I should do it. And that is not the case. You really want to use judgment in what you do, because if you do too many good things, you could be missing out on some great things. So again, use judgment, look at what you're doing, and say, just because I can do this doesn't mean that I should. Our guest today certainly has done some great things, traveled the country performing. He actually had an incredible story about how he moved to Las Vegas, and he was there as playing the title role of Jerry Lee Lewis in the incredible $1 Million Quartet for several years on Las Vegas Boulevard. He now has his own solo music and still tours around the country, even opening this year several shows for the one and only Jerry Lee Lewis. Please welcome Jacob Tolliver.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Jacob, how you doing?
Doing wonderfully.
Now, I gotta say, if people are hearing your music and it's incredible, you play in such a style that like not a lot of people play in anymore. I mean, it's like an old-timey style, but you're a young person.
It's very bizarre. All growing up, from the age of 3, I was drawn to older music. 50s music was too new for me when I was young. I mean, I liked 30s and 40s music. And I mean, I was the weirdest little kid, and I went through, I guess, the natural progression of music. I then started liking 50s and then 60s and 70s, and now I love pop and you know, like everything. But it started out, I guess I can credit my grandmother. She would always have her radio on in her house all day long in her kitchen. And so most of my upbringing, I would, you know, when my parents were at work, she would watch me. So just subconsciously, I'm hearing all these old, you know, older singers and bands. And so I think it just you know, got absorbed. It was, I don't know, it's bizarre. All my childhood, I knew I could play piano, but I had never played piano. And when I was about 8 years old, my grandmother and my mom, they wanted to put me into piano lessons. And so they did. And that lasted all of maybe 6 to 9 months. And the problem was I played too much by ear. And so the teacher would always catch me up in not reading the music. So I would read the page, you know, very slowly, and I'd count the lines and enough to get by. Yeah. And you know, by the time the next week's lesson came along, I wouldn't be looking at the page anymore. My ear would take over, and so I'd be jazzing it up. And so she would always
she wasn't happy about that.
And she was, I mean, then she was probably 80. She just passed away. A wonderful lady, sweetest woman in the world, and the most wonderful, you know, pianist in the world. But she wasn't able to teach me, and so finally she just told my parents. She said, I don't think it's right. And even then I wasn't upset. I wasn't anything. You know, I knew I could play even though I wasn't playing. And so I gave it up for about 4 years. And one day I was cleaning my bedroom, and I had put when I dropped the piano lessons, I put my keyboard under my bed, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done. But I still knew I could play, but I just didn't have an interest anymore because the proper aspect of playing, the proper fingering and the proper
what you were taught, maybe, or what was expected.
Right. Yeah. You had the posture and there's just so much etiquette to it that I didn't want to have anything to do with. And so I was more than fine not playing, at least for a while. And so I put the keyboard under my bed, and fast forward about 4 years, I'm cleaning my bedroom, and I'm cleaning under my bed. And so I decided to pull out the keyboard, and I dust it off, and I plug it in. And it was as simple as turning the thing on and playing. I I plug it in and I start going, and my dad's walking through the house and he's walking down the hallway and he pops his head into my room and he goes like, was that you? And I go, yeah. And he goes like, don't stop. You keep doing that. And so I did, and that was fun to me.
Yeah.
That was what I wanted to do, was what back then I called it the fun stuff. I didn't know what type of music it was. At the time, I wasn't familiar with who Jerry Lee Lewis was.
Yep.
I wasn't familiar with any of this, and I just started naturally playing, just a true God-given talent that just started pouring out of me. And in about 3 months, I could play not just as well as I can now, but I knew what I should play. Maybe I didn't have the the muscle strength or the muscle memory or whatever it takes, but in my head I knew what I wanted to play. I just maybe I didn't have the capability of doing it, but I knew the notes that I wanted to play, and even still there are things that I know I want to do. I can't do them.
Well, it's incredible too, and I want people to see. So we have video of you from one of the many viral videos we talked about. I mentioned in my Instagram story to get people to come, is that the videos that you have, and we have one from when you were on American Idol, and we'll play it here, and anyone who's on YouTube will be able to see it. Anyone who's listening to this on Apple Podcasts, you'll be able to hear it. Again, we are live here on YouTube every single Monday, but I want to be able to just play this clip for people to be able to experience the type of playing that you do.
Go. Do it. Give it.
Aye.
Work it. Take it. Yeah! Come on! Stop it! Oh, yeah!
Goodness and gracious, great balls of fire.
What do you think when you see yourself playing that way and standing on the bench and just banging on the keys? What is going through your mind?
It doesn't even seem like me, really. I see it, and you get into, speaking of American Idol, you get in the zone, dog.
Yeah.
I mean, you truly do. When you're performing, it's just something takes over, and that happens.
Yeah. Is that how it is when you're performing in a show too? Is that the feeling?
Anytime if there's two people standing there, something comes over, and you can say, for whatever the purpose is, maybe it's in the studio, and you'll say, well, you don't have to give it your all right now. Just kind of, just give it half of it. That way you get the idea. I can't do it. If there's somebody there, something comes over me, and that pops out.
And I think one of the videos, the original video of you playing, I think it was a hardware store in your hometown.
Yeah.
There's 1.6 million shares on Facebook.
Yeah.
So tens of millions of views.
This was posted before Facebook counted views. Back then, it only counted shares. This was in the summer of 2014, I believe. And man, I think I took off. A buddy of mine, he took that video the day before, and he said, do you mind if I post this on Facebook? Sure. Why do I care? Of course.
Who could see it?
Yeah, right. I mean, there's tons of them up there. I don't care if you post it. Have at it. And the next day, I wake up to a text from him that said, "Hey, man, I think we've gone viral." And he's always pulling my leg about something, and just the biggest kidder in the world. And so, I didn't believe him. I was back home in Ohio at the time on vacation. During that period, I was already working in Las Vegas, so I was just home on vacation. So I was home, I was seeing friends, seeing family, and so the last thing I was doing was playing on Facebook. So I didn't even check to see if he was serious, because there was, no fiber in my being thought he was being serious. And so after, I don't know, 3 hours later maybe, I'm still on my phone, and I go on my Facebook app, and I have 30,000 shares in less than 24 hours. It was like 12 hours.
Wow.
And I have 30,000 shares. And it was just mind-blowing. And so my parents and I, we went up to our our den and went to the computer, and we're just watching the likes come in, the shares come in, the comments.
You refresh the page and there's another 1,000 and another
Literally,
1,000.
like by the minute, it would be like more than 1,000. I mean, it was just
Wow.
It was insane. And I suppose that's how anybody that goes viral it is. And that was the biggest I've ever done. I've some other videos do well, but that was just it was mind blowing. And
Does that encourage you? Does that give you that high that you say, I want to do more?
yeah, of course. And I'm always trying to make something interesting and fun to post, or at least thinking of what the next thing will be. And yeah, it's definitely inspiring. And to me, that's one of my worst videos online. But that's the one that's taken off, and that's the one that has legs. And I think it's just such a weird marriage of things. I was back home in Ohio, so I have a nasty white T-shirt on and a backwards ball cap, shorts and flip flops, and I'm in a hardware store, and I'm 19 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's just an odd mixture. For one, you don't think somebody that young is going to play like that. Why is there a piano in a hardware store? And look at the way the kid's dressed. He's a schmuck,
Well, I think that's the reason that so many people connected to it is it's just something that they haven't seen before. And
Yeah.
your entire style and the way you play is so different from anyone who is your age.
Yeah.
Who they think that's a style that I maybe saw in the 40s and 50s. I don't see that from anyone now.
No. And you don't even, truthfully, you don't even see a piano entertainer now. There's John Legend. He's more of a piano player and more of a singer, I would say. But he's not a piano entertainer. He's not stomping on the thing and doing that. I would say Elton John or Billy Joel were the last two to come along in that vein. And, they're, Elton's 76 or something. So
What is it like then being someone so different in that realm? Do you like that? Do you sometimes feel like I need to be more like the groove?
Yes, yeah. I go through spells of thinking, of wondering what's the better path to go down. But who wants to be like everybody else? Because you don't have a shelf life that way.
Yeah.
So I think there's a way to modernize the music. Bruno Mars has done it.
Yep.
He certainly sticks out. He is Motown taken to 2018. Meghan Trainor has certainly done it. She's 50s doo-wop taken to 2015, 16, 17. So the same thing I think can apply to the sounds of Elton John and Little Richard and Billy Joel and Fats Domino and Jerry Lee Lewis. So that's my path at the moment.
You're talking about your path and the early part of your journey that you talked about, coming from Portsmouth, Ohio. A lot of people probably don't know anything about Portsmouth. Tell me about Portsmouth. What is Portsmouth like?
Portsmouth is fantastic. Portsmouth,
Ohio.
Portsmouth, Ohio. There's not enough room in this show to tell you about Portsmouth, Ohio, but Portsmouth is great. It's a very small town in the middle of Appalachia area. It's the most southern region of Ohio, about 2 hours south of Columbus, 2 hours from Cincinnati, pretty much 2 hours from a mall.
Yeah.
It's along the Ohio River, and it's just absolutely gorgeous country. And for some reason, there are just gobs and gobs of musical talent and athletic talent that come from the Portsmouth area. It's very bizarre. Plenty. Older, so I don't know if the viewers for this show would know, but Roy Rogers and Earl Thomas Conley and Bobby Bear and Billy Ray Cyrus. You would know Billy Ray Cyrus. He's from the area.
There's something in the water. What is?
There's something, yeah. The water, the moonshine.
And how young were you when you first started playing? Because we have a picture I was able to find of you very young playing a piano, and I don't know how young you first started playing. There, look at this picture.
Oh, look at that. I was 3. This is at my great-grandmother's house up in Cleveland, Ohio. Even at that age, I was drawn to it, man. My favorite toy, not to go away from the question, but my favorite toy when I was a kid, I was back home in Portsmouth a few weeks ago and came across my my baby book, and so I was going through it, and written favorite toy was a keyboard, and I remember this thing. It was about this big, and it was a Casio something, and I played that thing. I mean, just to where I drove everybody nuts from the time I was that age to 6 or 7 probably. I loved it.
Did your parents you drove them crazy, but I'm sure they recognized that this was something that you enjoyed and could be a future, do you think?
Yeah, very much. Especially my father. He's a musician. He's a drummer. Not professionally, but has the talent. And yeah, it was always very much embraced and encouraged in all the proper and right ways and all the best ways to make it happen. They put me in the band and chorus and piano lessons and all the things that musicals and all the things that could potentially spark a underlying talent, and it did.
Were the other teachers at school better than the 80-year-old piano teacher in supporting the way that you played?
Yeah, and the piano teacher, just to be clear, she very much supported it. She just didn't know how to deal with it, because she was so classically trained and so proper that she just had no clue what to do.
Yeah.
Yes, the teachers at my school were helped tremendously. One of the biggest reasons I was drawn to piano was when I went into elementary school. The music teacher, he's still there, Mike Newman. He plays in just a kind of a fun feeling as well. He plays by ear, and he it's kind of my style in a way. It's fun, and I was always just he's always going down the keyboard doing glissandos, and he's kind of wild with it. And as a kindergartner, first grader, you're seeing that like, wow, that's what I want to do. And so he always supported it, and he was always just amazed by my weird knowledge of old artists back then. And then going into middle school, Sonia Thompson, she would spoon feed me stuff that notes that were on a page. Sometimes if I would want to learn something, she would read it for me and say, this is how you do it, this is what it is, and then I would take it and run with it. And then high school, Linda Tiemann was just absolutely amazing and completely supported it in every way. And we went to New York City on a choir trip one time, and we walked something like 15 miles just to go to an audition. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, it was.
At what age did you know that this was more than just a school hobby or passion? That this was something that could be post school?
When I started making money.
Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, it was funny. My very first gig was in my freshman year. I'd only been playing a year, pretty much exactly a year, maybe over like a year and 2 weeks. I got a little show for the local, I think it was local Kiwanis Club or a Rotary Club one, and a lady put out a tip jar for me, and I made like $200.
In a night?
In a day, and I did like 5 songs or something. And here I am, I'm 14 years old.
$200 when you're 14 years old?
Yeah.
You're rich.
Yeah. And so right there, I thought, wow, there could be something to this. And then so, I started getting other shows around town, and would just open my piano case, my keyboard case, and, put a sign that says tips or something.
Yeah.
And people just come up and start throwing dollars into it. And so that was a, very, in a funny way, inspiring to just enough to say, wow, maybe, people evidently do think you're good enough to give you their money. So there must be something to it.
Yeah.
Not that it was about the money, but you could see that people thought enough to do that. And so that was certainly, funny enough, it was a good start and reason to make me think maybe I want to do this. And so I didn't know how to do this because I can't read music. I only played by ear. So I didn't know, my whole family, they've all been to college, they all do the proper thing. So growing up, I'm going to college. I mean, that's how it is. And so that's what I hadn't figured out. And I never did figure out. It just happened. What I thought I would do was go to Ohio State. I was accepted into Ohio State. And I thought, well, I'm a good people person. I can talk to people fine. I thought, well, why not go into public relations? And then it could maybe slip into entertainment through the back door. You know, be a PR guy for a band or for a show or whatever it is. And so that was kind of my only way that I figured out to where I could justify going to college, having a good living and a backup plan, and still trying to pursue what I want to pursue. So that's how it was going to be. And then one day I was working at an ice cream shop during high school, and I got home from work. I checked my email, and I had a notification from YouTube that said, somebody commented on your video. And so I click on it, and it was a video that had been posted of me in my high school music room. And there were tons of those up on YouTube back then.
Yeah. Doing crazy piano.
Yeah, just all this stuff. And so one of the videos was from a casting agency in Las Vegas. And one of the comments on the videos was from a casting agency. And it said, hi, Jacob, we are from Adorma Casting, and we're looking to hire for a show called $1 Million Quartet. Please give us a call at your earliest convenience. So the next day I call them, and they said, hi, we want to fly you out to Las Vegas tomorrow for an audition. I'm a month away from going to Ohio State. I'm already graduated high school. I already have what I thought was my plan figured out. And all of a sudden this curveball came and kind of answered all my problems of how am I going to figure out how to get in the biz.
What I want to know is, what was your parents' first reaction when you told them, hey, but I just got this call to go to Vegas tomorrow for a position, possibly?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of opposite of what I thought. So, in my area, it's a lot of farmers from where I'm from. So all my dad's side of the family, they were all farmers. So none of them went to college. They all, straight out of school, they became farmers, and that's what they did. My mother's side was completely the opposite. It was lawyers and teachers and doctors and
blue collar versus white collar.
Yeah, and all in the same area. And so I thought my mother would be the one, no, you're going to college. And Dad being the musician and comes from a background where they don't go to college, I thought, oh, I got it made with Dad. And no, other way around. Dad was like, my son's going to be the first one to break this tradition. Like my son's going to be the one that goes to college finally. And he was so proud of me. Here I am going to college. I'm accepted, and it was done. And Mom was the other one. She's like, well, college will always be there. You don't get an opportunity like this. And she's convincing him. Rick, look at remember when you were his age and a drummer, and if you would have had that shot to be in a major casino on the Las Vegas Strip every night, you would have done it, and you should have done it. And so after a few days, Dad finally came around. He goes, all right. He's like, I get it. It's always there. Like, you got to do this. You can't.
Had you ever been to Vegas before?
No. I mean, I was 18 when I got the YouTube message, and when I went out for the audition. I turned 19 a week later. And a couple days after that, I get the call saying, hey, you got the gig. Do you want to do this or college?
In a matter of a week and a half, your world is changed.
Blown apart. Yeah.
What are you thinking during this time? I mean, how much of a decision is this for you to say, how do I want to choose? And by the way, I don't have a couple weeks to kind of think on this decision. I have a couple hours.
A couple hours, yeah. It was hard because I'm a very family-oriented, person. I love my hometown. I was all about that, and the idea.
Well, that's what Vegas is, very family-oriented and just very.
Yeah, very much so. And so, being at Ohio State, I'm 2 hours away, a quick drive, and you're back home, and you get to visit on the weekends. And and I was still a major step. Obviously, I'd never been away from home. I was only 18, and so the idea of being a 4-hour plane ride and a 3-day drive away from home is a big thought. And finally, just the instinct that's always been there, that 3-year-old kid that plays piano said, well, you got to do it. Regardless of how much you love your grandmother and how much it's not about that. It's, you still love your grandmother. You still, you're still a home person. You still can have all of those aspects, but you got to do what you're born to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's how I got there.
Playing in Vegas, glitz, glamour, yes, no. I mean, people see the shows about Vegas. They hear the allure of Vegas. Did you enjoy it? Was it?
Yeah. When you live there, it's a whole other town. The first couple weeks are fun, because it's the Strip. There's shows, there's lights, there's just bells and whistles everywhere, and it's really exciting.
But you're also the 18-year-old who can't partake in a lot of Vegas.
Right, exactly. Which is funny, many people come up to me and go, how were you in Vegas for 4 years, so young, and come out fine? And, I always kid, that's the reason, because I wasn't allowed to partake in all this sin. And, if I was 21 moving there for the first time, probably been a different story. I don't know how much of a different story, because at the end of the day, I'm still the same person, but it was probably a good thing that you're not allowed in clubs, you're not allowed into this and that. It was interesting. But to answer your question, when you live there, it's
different.
It's different. It's like a hometown. There's the Strip, which is very touristy. You don't dare to venture onto the Strip unless you have to, unless friends are in town. You pop into the casino, go to work, and you get out. And the rest is just a normal community. It's not like you would think it is. But for PR reasons, of course, they make it what it is. But no, it was a great time, lovely time. It was my first band. It was a huge learning opportuning just to
do something day in and day out.
Yeah.
I mean, the experience that you learn doing that.
Yeah. A friend of mine, the guy that videoed that hardware store video, he always said, you went to Vegas and that was your entertainment boot camp. You learn what you learned there can't be taught. And it's true. Yeah. You can't be taught how to do 8 shows a week. And you can't be taught how to do all of that, how to play with the band, you just have to do it with experience. And it was truly, the best thing that's happened to me musically to date. It was really great.
Coming off that, venturing now into more solo and on your own, what's that transition been like? And obviously you're in LA now versus Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Same big town, I suppose. I mean, big feel of a town, which is good.
Right.
But it seems like it's still a whole other ballgame. It's a whole other world, 2 different types and styles.
It is. It was funny, though, being in Vegas. I made more connections and more friends, not counting the castmates of the show, but outside of that, I made more connections and friends in Los Angeles because everybody's a tourist.
Yeah.
So I'd meet all these people that came over from Las Vegas or from Los Angeles to see the show, and we'd stay in touch. And so it got to a point to where I started knowing more people in Los Angeles. And so my last year in Vegas, I was coming here almost every weekend. And so that's kind of how I got to Los Angeles, because once $1 Million Quartet closed, it was between Nashville or Los Angeles. I knew it was a great thing that the show closed, because it was the golden handcuffs. It was you're too comfortable. You get a weekly paycheck. You're doing what you love, but you were doing a good thing, not a great thing. After a certain point, it's for 4 years. You know,
Yeah.
the first year is amazing and a big stepping stone. But when you do it for 4 years, it's the same thing. So
And are people staying in those roles for years and years? And I mean,
yeah, for the most part. I mean, there was, of course, some
turnover,
movement.
but-
Yeah, but you as an artist become stale because you're doing the same thing over and over and over, but yet you don't leave because it's very comfortable, and why would you? And so when it closed, I then knew, well, I have to go. There's nothing else in Vegas to do. Once you're in a show on this strip, you've kind of done it all. So the next step is Nashville or Los Angeles to work on my solo stuff. And I knew one guy in Nashville, and I knew 15 people in Los Angeles, and so it just made more sense to move here. And so for the last year, I have been working with writers and producers and different musicians, and here in LA and in Nashville, I try to get there as much as I can, but just to put my cards out everywhere. And so far it's going really well. My hopes are to get an EP of original music out within the year, probably by fall. We have about 5 songs, good songs that are written, and we want to get a couple more just to make sure we have a solid group, and then put out an EP. But right now I'm working on just an album of just cover songs, deep cuts, so they won't seem covery. They'll be new for most people. I'm actually just an hour before I was here today, I was in the studio recording that. This weekend recorded 10 tracks for this album, and I think this will be out. This cover album will probably be out in June, July.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Now, why music? I mean, what feeling do you get when you play music, or what is kind of the allure for you of the joy that it brings you?
Definitely a joy, yeah. I mean, I love it. If there's something in your life, and everybody has one thing, I'm convinced, they may not know what it is, but I believe everybody has their one given gift, and that's, to me, is the thing that you can do and do and do and do and do and never get tired of, and you love it no matter what. And I could play piano 12 hours every day, and I'm not going to get tired of it. I could sing all day, and I'm not going to get tired of it. Everybody has that one God-given thing that they're put on this planet to do, and for me, that's it. There's just no option. And I pray often that look, you've given me this talent. Just make me the best I can, and I will do with it the best I can. And so far it's done, that philosophy, and
Fairly well.
It's done okay, yeah.
What do you look to put into your music or your lyrics? Where does that inspiration come from?
Well, lyrically, I'm if there are any lyricists out there, give me a ring. I'm the least poetic person you'll ever come across. That's the writers I've been meeting. That's why I meet with writers and don't just do it all myself, because lyrically, that is my fault. And I'm glad that I am alert enough and conscious enough to know that I'm not good at it. You see many people out there who are great musicians, write their own music, and it's horrible because they just can't write. So I know that that's my problem. So musically, the inspiration, I don't even know. It just comes out is just as I'm talking here. It just starts.
Do you find catch yourself maybe at some point during the day thinking, "Oh my God, I could play this. I could play it like this, or I could
absolutely.
make this."
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you write it down? Where do you immediately go out to a piano?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it sounds funny, but yes, if I'm not near, I will. If I'm walking through a supermarket and I hear a song playing, and I think, wow, I could really do a cool version of this, I push record and I start recording the thing, and we'll kind of sing along with it. That way, I know what it is, or I'll type something, a note on my phone or something, and then when I get to the piano, I'll buy the song or whatever it is and start playing around with it and see if indeed I can do something with it. And yeah.
What do you think the biggest mistake that a lot of musicians make is? Because you mentioned about, some people aren't alert and aware that they can't do everything. Is that the biggest mistake that a lot of musicians make? Or what are
It's a
other
big one.
mistakes that people in music falter in?
Yeah. And I'm probably not the proper person to ask, but in my opinion, would probably be just, letting others tell you how to be. A producer will come in and say, no, you're doing it all wrong. This is how it needs to be done. This is how you play the chord. Not up here, you play it like this. This is what you do. Nobody went up to Elvis Presley, Celine Dion, Miley Cyrus, or, maybe Miley Cyrus, I don't know. But, these greats, historical greats, nobody went up to them and said, no, this isn't how you should do it. You should do it this way because this is how I hear it. That's why, to me, that's why music today sounds all the same. I do like it, I enjoy it, but for the most part, and it's a broad thing to say, but pop music, in a lot of ways, sounds very similar. Country music sounds very similar. It's the same beats, it's the same story, it's the same words. It's just the same thing. And it's because it works, and it does work. That's a great thing. It gets a radio play.
Yeah.
It's great. But it's cheating. It's
Low risk.
Yeah, and you don't become a legend that way. You become a one-hit wonder, a 5-hit wonder, but nobody's going to remember you in 10 years.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to remember you. So it's nobody's themselves anymore. There are no bands anymore. There's no identity anymore because everybody's kind of morphed together as one. Back in, let's look at the 1960s. There wasn't just one type of music. You had Frank Sinatra playing right next to Led Zeppelin. You had Led Zeppelin playing right next to Willie Nelson. You had all these people who were so diverse and so different, but yet so good because they were true to themselves. They didn't sin against their talents. They listened to it and they went with it. And that's what I think is the biggest fault of musicians is they let other people tell them how they should be, not what they think they should be.
I was listening on the radio the other day in the car, and the country station that I had listened to, there was almost a pop country song on there. There was some electrical in the country, and it's 5-10 years ago that would never have played on a country station.
Yeah. I mean, you almost can't even call it country music anymore. I love it. I think it's great. Most of it, some of it, but it's and that's fine to have, to have beats and to have those things on a track. That's awesome. That's really cool. But make it different.
Yeah.
Look what Meghan Trainor has beats on her stuff. People like this. They all have those modern sounds. That's great. That's a great thing to have. But make it different. And country music to me, as a whole, isn't doing that. And same for pop. And except for the few exceptions. And
You've obviously played a lot with Jerry Lee. Played as Jerry Lee for 4 years, and obviously you have a good friendship with him.
yeah.
What is the biggest thing you've learned from him?
Personally,
Personally, professionally, advice?
personally, don't pop your fingers. And he told me to shave every day. He said, "Son, you have too many whiskers on your face. Start shaving every day." But musically, wow. I mean, I've learned tons. Although, again, naturally, I started playing like that. But once I hit about that 3-month mark, like I talked about, when I started really playing, people then started saying, "Hey, man, you got to go back and listen to Jerry Lee Lewis. You have to listen to Jerry Lee Lewis." I'm getting it from everybody. And so finally, I went back, and actually, how it happened, my dad was the one telling me the most, like, "Son, you have to listen to Jerry Lee Lewis." And it's Dad. He's not right. Fathers aren't right when you're
Yeah.
that age. Like,
No.
what do you know?
What do you know, Dad?
Yeah, you don't know anything. finally, after I'm really playing, he goes like, all right, I've had enough of this. I'm calling the radio station. And I guess this is before YouTube. And so he calls our local radio station, and he requested Great Balls of Fire, Jerry Lee Lewis song.
Yeah.
And he called the radio station, requested it, and there was a basketball game on at the time, and so they said, give us 45 minutes and we'll play it. So we were listening to the radio for 45 minutes, and you shook my nerves, and I heard it, and I'm like, wow, this is what I'm doing. And so then I just start really listening to him and just listening to all the runs he did and does, and just all the things that just how he does it. And for the most part, it was all stuff that I already knew and already wanted to do, or again, knew what I wanted to do but couldn't do it. And so it was just more inspiration, and I don't know, it was just amazing. And for over half my life, Jerry Lee has been a part of it in some way.
Wow.
Whether it's been just what I listen to, or now I know him well. I'm seeing him just in a couple days. He's playing in Las Vegas, and get to hang out with him. And I don't know, it's just an inspiration in many, many ways. I mean, this guy changed the course of music. There wasn't a headbanger. There wasn't a real rock and roller in 1950s. Elvis kind of shook his hips, but he was only out at not even a year. Well, I guess about exactly a year when Jerry Lee came onto the scene. So Elvis wasn't even Elvis at the time. I mean, these guys were the founding fathers of rock and roll, and that changed the course of music. We wouldn't have pop music like we have it today. We wouldn't have country music like we have it today if it weren't for that. So to be around somebody that's so instrumental in history, I mean, in 200 years, Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and these people, they will be up with Mozart and Beethoven and those people, and it's amazing just to be able to be in the same room with this guy, and now he's a great friend and like a grandfather to me, and it's just, when you think about it, it really is, it's mind-blowing for me. I get so, I'm so used to it, I don't think about it much anymore. But I mean, if you'd have told 10-year-old or 13-year-old me, you'll have Thanksgiving dinner with Jerry Lee Lewis when you're 23, I would say, I could never be. It's nuts. It really is. It's crazy. And he's still an inspiration to me. He's 82 years old, and he goes out and kills it. I mean, he's still the same. He shreds the piano. It's amazing.
If you would have told 17-year-old Jacob Tolliver that this is where you would be several years later, having performed in Vegas for 4 years and now out in Los Angeles, what would 17-year-old Jacob Tolliver have said?
I think he would have been speechless. 17-year-old Jacob Tolliver was, always had a hope to be in the show $1 Million Quartet. The show had just come out. I remember I was watching the Tonys, I guess about the time I was 17, maybe 16. And it was a new show. It was, new show on Broadway, new Broadway show. And the guy that played Jerry Lee Lewis won a Tony that year. And that's how I found out about the show. And I see, they did a live performance. And I'm like, wow, there's a show about this? And, a scripted actual story. And I mean, just blew me away. I'm like, wow, what are the odds of just the timing of this? Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis they've been around for 60 years. Why just now is there being a musical created at the time I'm able to portray that character? And so there was always some hope that I would get to do that. And then that email came, that wanted me to audition.
Where would you be now if you had not gone to Las Vegas?
Wow. Who knows?
Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, I of course. And I don't know, I don't know. I would like to think I would be being a PR guy for some musical greatness. Who knows? Maybe I'd have gone back home and been comfortable and been happy, just being a hometown boy. I don't know, because that was very comfortable and is very comfortable for me. Who knows? That's a great question.
What do you consider your definition of success?
If you're doing what you love, you're happy and you have food. You know, maybe not making a crazy living, but
You're living.
You're living. You know, I feed myself. I have a roof over my head. I'm doing what I love, and that's how I make my living. And I'm more than happy with that. You know, if it becomes millions and millions, then fantastic. If it doesn't, I'm still happy. You know, I think that's the key. And for many people, it's you know, they can do what they love, and it's that part gets in the way. It's the making the money gets in the way of what makes them happy, and it's kind of, I don't know, to me it's kind of a cycle. You know, what came first, the chicken or the egg? But if you're doing what you love, you just have to step back and think, man, I'm doing what I love. Just, you know, shut up and be happy for a second. You know, it doesn't matter if you can't buy this awesome car or this mansion. You know, who cares? You're doing what you love and you're happy. Just chill out and enjoy the ride.
Final question I enjoy asking people is, in 40 or 50 years, people hear the name Jacob Tolliver. What are 3 things you want people to remember about your life and your music?
Wow. Well, I hope there's some, you know, kid out there on some podcast or some TV show or something just as this, doing the same thing, talking about me as I talk about Jerry Lee Lewis. I hope I can be that instrumental in the way music is directed and the way just the foundation of music to come. You know, obviously, I'll never be Jerry Lee Lewis. I don't want to be Jerry Lee Lewis. I think Jerry Lee Lewis is fantastic, and I'm sure probably many people out there today aren't familiar with Jerry Lee Lewis. Get familiar with Jerry Lee Lewis. You know, it's if I could be the guy that just carries his torch, and so far he's backing it and he supports it. He's letting me open for his shows, and he sees it. And actually, the other day, I was with him, and he said, "Son," he said, "you're going places." And he said, "You don't see things like I see them," but he said, "You're going places." And
wow,
you know, he's kind of like a unicorn, right? I mean, it's just, this guy's still alive, and he's still. I mean, this guy changed everything. I mean, TV commercials wouldn't be the same. Walking through a store wouldn't be nothing would be the same if music. You know, there's music everywhere you go, and this guy really, you know, music is going this way. He just put a big sharp turn. So, you know, I hope I can carry this torch of the way the piano is played and have the same effects on music. And I hope people can know that. And I hope that I remain a solid individual and a happy and nice individual all my life, and the biz doesn't get to me. And I hope people remember all of those things as well. But, you know, to be influential, I think would be an amazing thing to be remembered. You know.
Well, you just keep those Portsmouth ties, and you know they'll keep you grounded. I guarantee. Talking about your dad's family, it seems like they're the people who are going to be able to keep you grounded, and you know those farmers. They know how to shoot you straight.
They tell you exactly how it is.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and again sharing your inspiration. I know just that decision. You're 17 and 18 years old, and you're having to make a career decision that literally impacts your future.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made the decision you did, and I'm glad that now you're inspiring people through that and encouraging them. Guys, again, we are live here with a new episode of I Could Never Be every Monday at 4 o'clock Pacific time. We just love to be able to encourage you guys on your journeys, offer some inspiration, and really just be a light of positivity in the world. So, Jacob, thank you for doing just that with us today. Guys, if you want to follow Jacob after the show, at Jacob Tolliver on Instagram and on Twitter. I know you're big on Facebook, too, so facebook.com/The Jacob Tolliver. Again, we're here on Popcorn Talk. Happy to be here on Popcorn Talk. And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at TheOnlyMC. Guys, like, comment, share, subscribe, rate, tell a friend. I think I covered all the things right there.
Covered it all.
Be the positive in someone's life. We'll see you next time.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.